I've got a JFK speech that I play at every single revenue kickoff every quarter where he talks about going to the moon and how it's going to be really hard. But in order to do it, it's going to be, take the best resources across the team. It's going to make us better as a nation. It's going to make us better as a space program. We are going to be a better country because of just trying, even if we fail. I think that is revenue in a nutshell, and specifically startup revenue in a nutshell, is that we all signed up for this knowing that it's going to be really freaking hard. We're going to have to work some Saturdays. We're going to face a crazy amount of challenges. But when we get to the finish line, we're going to be better as a team, we're going to be better as an individual, and we're going to make the world a better place.
Welcome back to another episode of the Sales Gravy Podcast. With me today is my friend Will Yarbrough, who is back again to spend some time with us. The last time he was on, if you listen to that podcast, it was absolutely fantastic. And today we're going to be just talking about sales subjects. I don't know exactly where we're going to go because the last time it was free ranging. I got a couple of questions for Will. He's a chief revenue officer, so I've got some things that I'm thinking about that I want to cover. And then we're going to talk a little bit about avoiding complacency in sales, and then making sure that you've got a focus on what I like to call the big pull, like what's pulling you forward, what's driving you forward so you can operate at your very best. Before we get started, I want you to go check out Sales Gravy University. Sales Gravy University is where sales teams and individuals from all over the globe come to learn the skills and competencies to close more, sell more. And there's really nothing else like it. We've got live courses taught by our master trainers, and we've got more than 1,000 hours of on-demand content from 40 plus of the top sales experts in the world. And every day we're adding more courses to Sales Gravy University. And right now you can go try it for free by using the code FREECOURSE. Just go to learn.salesgravy.com. That's learn.salesgravy.com. So Will, last time we were together, you were with another company. Now you've transitioned to a company called Denim. You're the CRO. And I guess just for our audience's interest, tell us what Denim does and a little bit about your role there.
Yeah, sure. First off, thanks for having me back, Jeb. Great to see you again, and excited to get into another great conversation. So I did go through a transition a couple of months ago. So I moved away from fleet maintenance software, basically ensuring that vehicles are getting their oil changed on time to make sure that the supply chain keeps moving. And now I've moved on to more in the background solution, a company called Denim, where essentially what we do is provide working capital for both fleets and brokerages that facilitate the movement of goods to basically go out and earn more business. So it's a razor thin margin space. And a lot of times our customers need more money to go and find that next customer or take that next load. And we facilitate that relationship and provide a working capital solution, basically dollars in the bank so that they can go do that. And then we provide a really modern and really awesome financial backend, a fintech solution, if you will, to run their books a bit tighter and make sure that the operation is clean.
So just so I understand it, so you're doing freight brokerage, and you get freight, and then you're waiting to get paid. Because you're billing a customer, but you're still paying for the freight to be moved from one place to the next. So if you don't manage your cash flow correctly, you could get underwater really quickly. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And, typical net 30 terms, net 45-day terms, that sort of thing. And, it's pretty unique if people pay on time these days. So we're basically just taking that out of the calculus and mitigating that on behalf of our customers and giving them that cash today versus having to wait a month or two before it hits their bank.
Now, this is just for me because I've heard this term a lot, and I'm fortunately, because I'm a salesperson and not a accountant, I don't really understand, but you use the term factoring. Can you explain what that means?
I'll admit, before I knew what Denim was and what Denim did, I didn't have any idea what factoring was, despite being in the fleet space for nearly a decade. So factoring is essentially what we just described. It is a financial instrument. It's basically a loan that's just categorized a bit differently than if you were to go straight to, Bank of America or Wells Fargo. But it is specifically a loan against a receivable. So just as you said, I've shipped something, I'm going to get paid for it. I've got a receivable on my books. You can use that as collateral to get factoring or get capital called factoring to basically bridge that gap between the pay terms and when you actually, deliver the goods. So factoring is just a way to describe that. And the thing that I would say too, as a final kind of plug on way Denim is trying to do this is really just trying to do it in a very, very different way. Factoring has been around since like the Babylonian era. So it's always been a thing. It's in a ton of different industries. We're just focused on freight. But what we're really trying to do is kind of take the negative side of factoring out of the equation and be very, very partnership focused, very customer friendly, and very modern in the way that we approach it. And that translates into a better customer experience. And for us, lifelong customers versus, a transaction that may happen a moment in time.
So you've transitioned this company. You left another company that you were doing fantastic at. Moved over here. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing as a CRO, looking at the organization to drive growth? And I'm assuming that your mandate from your CEO is to grow us as fast as you can and the most responsible way that you can.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always more, and faster, faster, faster. And that's part of the fun in the job. I'd say, there's a couple of challenges that come to mind with respect to the transition. And I'm sure tons of your listeners have gone through this exact scenario. But, I think the outside looking in, you're never going to get the full picture. So the great things about the business, the great things about the process, as well as some of the challenges within the business and within the process, you're not going to uncover all of that in the interview or in your due diligence. And so there are surprises that pop up, and that's going to be true at any company. But that is a challenge to basically prioritize and put one thing ahead of the other or vice versa, and trying to figure out which challenge is the most important thing that, again, is going to lend itself to that fast revenue growth that you hit on. I'd say the other thing that I'm really trying to focus on is this quote unquote one funnel mindset. And when you and I got together last time, we were kind of talking about the engine that Fleetio had built. It was really thanks to this one funnel mindset that me and the VP of marketing shared, in the sense that it's not marketing qualified leads and sales qualified leads. It's just qualified leads. We are all focused on growing revenue and growing top line. And so we have to be aligned on that quote unquote one funnel mindset. So for me at Denim, what I'm really trying to think intentionally about and sort of mobilize my team to do more of is from marketing to sales development to partnerships to revenue operations to the direct sellers, the account executives. Everybody is thinking about this as one end-to-end customer experience. And again, that one funnel mindset where pipeline and revenue dollars are what matters. Everything else is either a vanity metric or noise. And then I'd say the other thing that I'm trying to do is really carry forward some of the learnings that I've had in a prior experience, which is, career 101 kind of stuff. But, taking a very data-driven approach to how we're thinking about strategy, what markets to go after, how many people to hire, what our comp plan should look like. So embedding our strategic decision-making in the data that the business has captured. And in today's world, there's plenty of it. So trying to analyze the right points and prioritize the right points versus, again, just trying to get or getting caught or trapped in the noise of it all.
So how are your salespeople deployed? Do you have people in the field that are going out and calling on customers, or is everything being run from inside remotely from their home offices?
Predominantly inside. We're doing Zoom meetings and virtual calls and so forth. Pretty common across the freight space, the end-to-end, sort of freight supply chain space. Everybody's on the road and moving around a whole bunch. So it's not super easy to get that on-site meeting in the way that it may be in other industries or in other spaces. But, for the right customer relationship and for the right size deal, if you will, we definitely want to carve out budget and time to go see people face to face. As you and I talked a lot about last time, sales is still a human to human interaction. And I think it will be for a very, very long time. So we still got to break bread with folks, get to know them and build a relationship. Because at the end of the day, they're trusting us with their financials, which is a pretty big deal.
Now, I had an expert on with me a couple of weeks ago who made this bold prediction, and I'm just going to throw this on the table to see what you do with it. He said that in 2 years there will be no more salespeople. That AI will handle all the sales motions for every company, and I'm just curious. It's like the clock ticking in 24 months. Are you like getting rid of all of your human salespeople and letting the bots do all the work?
No. So again, and you and I have talked about this in the past, I think about this a good bit. I struggle to see a world. Let's just take the easiest example that I can think of is, Jeb Enterprises, Inc. ever going to spend $1 million with Oracle without talking to somebody? I just don't think so. What I do think, though, is that AI is going to enhance both the buyer and the seller experience. And maybe the 100% of work that we do in a given day today is maybe 60, 70% because AI is really good at teeing the ball up for us or doing a lot of the admin work, determining which space in the market we should go after and what we should say and how we should handle those conversations. I still think it's going to take Jeb and Will to have a conversation in order to get that deal done. And the other thing I think about too is like the fighter jet pilot. Human instincts are just so incredibly valuable. I think you're still going to want a human being interpreting the situation, kind of figuring out what move or lever we can pull to progress the conversation forward. I think it's a long time before robots take that away from us.
Yeah, I'm not seeing ever a time for robots taking human to human contact away from us. I think that more than anything, and I've got a brand new book coming out called The AI Edge that'll be out in the fall. And for me, the value of the bot is that it gives us more time to spend with human beings. It gives us more time to sell more. And I love that you used the word enhances this because I think that's exactly what happens. One of the analogies we use in the book is the $6 Million Man, which I'm a little older than you, but like when I was a kid, man, the $6 Million Man was everything. Like you would jump off logs going, you do the noise and everything. And, but I think that's the plug-in. Like you put AI with human and you plug that in. Now we get salespeople who can run faster, who are better at what they do, who are stronger at what they do, who are smarter at what they do. And it allows us to connect with human beings more often. So I'm intrigued with the robots that are going to take over the world. And what I've seen so far is that as soon as we deploy robots to start doing the things that humans do really, really well, which is talk to other human beings and the nuance of that, it crashes and burns very, very quickly. Like it's not something that scales very well because the robots very quickly kill whatever they're trying to scale. And a really good example of that has been email prospecting. Last year, this time, we were being inundated with robot email. And that ran really hard for about 8 months. And then it died. It's been absolutely obliterated because nobody responds to it. I mean, everybody now just goes, I'm not responding to this stuff. And people got really wise to it and decided, I'm just going to block it. So you're not even getting through. Whereas a salesperson who sent an email here and there by hand would rarely get blocked. The robot who relentlessly every day hits you with the same exact message, people go, I don't want to do this anymore. So I think that the same thing is going to happen. We're going to experiment with things, but we're going to come back to where the competitive edge lies, and that is the human experience. And I think there's going to be a place where there are going to be companies who are going to try to replace entire call centers. And there are going to be other companies who are going to say, you know what, the competitive advantage is have a human being that people can talk to, and they're going to win more often than the companies that then just can replace all their human beings with robots.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I would love nothing more than I wouldn't love this, but I would look like a hero if I could gut my sales team and bring my payback period down to a month and just completely demolish my customer acquisition costs. I don't think I'm going to hit my goals that way. And I think, what sellers can forget, or rather the sales machine can forget, is that you forget about your own experience as a buyer. And everybody buys completely different ways. I imagine you and I buy very, very differently. And again, that's part of that fighter jet pilot analogy thing, is that you need the seller to sort of interpret or predict what the next move is going to be. And like, at least for now, it's pretty hard for AI to predict buyer behavior in that sense. And so, I think about the way that I buy. I'm going to go to a website. I'm going to try to find a chat or a way that I can call somebody and get a human being on the phone. If you send me to the help center and I've got to dig the answer up, like I'm going to be annoyed. And so again, all of those little things where we're trying to remove that human to human connection, as you said, ultimately it's risky because it can create annoyance or inconvenience in your customer's mind. And that's just a terrible way to start a relationship. I do think you're right, though. It's the enhancement of the work, the enhancement of the experience, where if you're not investing or thinking about those things today, you could be left behind.
Let me drop another thing in. I'm just curious about what you're seeing in the marketplace, and I know that you've got your lane that you're in fleet and working in transportation. One thing I've noticed recently, and I say recently, when I say notice something, I've been watching this over the last, say, 9 months or so, and that is that sales cycles are beginning to shorten a little bit. And what I mean by that is I've watched people make $1 million decisions in one call. They've
Yeah.
and I've actually observed this in my own clients. Companies making big time decisions, that these decisions are typically lower complexity. Even though they're high dollar, the complexity is lower. The risk is a little bit lower, even though they're high dollars. But they've done so much work up front before they made a buying decision that they needed to talk to someone. They wanted to have a human contact. They needed to make sure that they were making the right decision. But when the salesperson did all the right things, the deal got closed really quickly. And I've noticed this across multiple industries where there are deals that may have taken 4 or 5 calls in the past that are moving a lot faster than they were before. Now, I was on having a conversation this morning, doing a keynote for an education company where it's the opposite. Their deals are taking a lot longer because of funding and some other issues that are happening in that particular industry. But I'm curious what you're seeing out there. Are you experiencing some buyers who are making decisions much quicker than they would have in the past simply because they just have more information at their fingertips, or they feel more comfortable with your salesperson once they've covered, hey, these are the things I needed to know? If the salesperson just says, hey, let's go, they're ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have 2 points of view on this. One, when I got in the sales game, a long time ago, there was a statistic out there that it was like, a typical buyer does 50 to 60% of their due diligence before they ever talk to a salesperson. I would imagine that number is probably closer to 80, 85, maybe even 90% of the due diligence before they talk to a salesperson. So I do think just like the robustness of the internet and how many things are out there and how many companies are going digital, specifically post-COVID, you can just educate yourself so much more than you ever could. And that's a good thing. But at the end of the day, I think the point you made right there to close out your question is the most important one that we're hitting on today, which is that I've done 90% of my due diligence. I'm pretty sure that I want to go with this company, but I just want to call them and I want to talk. I want to make sure it's a real business, that they're not crazy, that I can get somebody on the phone. That is the human to human connection. And you and I talked last time about how most sales deals are won by a nose. Brian Tracy, the thing you called out. So again, if that nose is that 10% or that human to human conversation, like, you should absolutely set your sales process up to facilitate that. So I'm getting a bit off track. I definitely have seen what you have seen in the sense that sales cycles are getting more abbreviated, that customers are doing more research. But I still think that like that last nose, that last 10% all comes down to how comfortable are you with the company? Can you trust the company with $1 million or $10? And do you feel like it's going to be a partnership foundation to build off of versus like a vendor or transactional relationship, which often doesn't require the same kind of human to human connection.
Okay, so now let's think about that in terms of the seller's competency and coming into every conversation with a mindset of excellence. If we can agree that buyers they have more knowledge than they would typically have, and they've done a lot of work. I'd always argue that I want to be there way before they start doing their research, so I'm helping them with the research. But if I'm having a conversation with them, and let's say they're 80 or 90% of the way there, and they just need to feel good, and I just know myself as a business owner, that's often where I am. Like I've experienced it, I've done it, I've done a lot of work, and I need to talk to someone, and if they make me feel good, I'm pulling the trigger because I've already budgeted the money in my mind. I'm already going to spend it. So how does that impact a salesperson's need to be on their game when they engage that customer or that prospect on the phone or on video or in person?
Yeah. We talked about this last time, where just like the little things matter a whole lot. I was gonna to joke with you today that I put the jacket on. I'm not going into an office anymore, and like, you go into an office in a modern startup and you're wearing a jacket, everybody's like, where's your job interview? Well, I'm not bumping into anybody in the office. I'll put the jacket on for you to mirror. But, I think it's the little things that matter, the lighting, all those sorts of things. Do you pay attention to those nitty gritty details? At the end of the day, you don't know which one of those things is going to be most important to the prospect. So you better check all of the boxes that you can. So I think, to answer your question, it all comes down to preparation and the investment that seller is willing to make. World-class sellers closed a third of their deals. So that means they're going to lose 67% of the time. That is going to do one of two things to that individual. It is either going to drive them to be more prepared and nail every single phone call every single time, or it's going to drive them to think, well, I don't know. I got kind of like a 2/3 chance this thing is going to be flushed down the toilet anyway. So I'm just going to kind of roll the dice and see what happens. Obviously, I'm more of a fan of the former than the latter. But I think this is a great parlay into just investing in yourself and ensuring that you're prepared for those conversations. The high level thing I would guide people to do is invest in sales university or something to enhance your skill set and make yourself better. Read books, get ideas from podcasts like this one or other peers or colleagues that you may have in the space. But at the end of the day, you've got to make sure that you're investing in yourself and better preparing for that conversation. The tactical advice that I would give you is to say, Jeb, look, you're a smart guy. You got a super successful business. Obviously, you've already done your research and you know a lot about us. I'm here to make it really, really easy for you to say yes. So how can I help you fill in the gaps? I would lend the conversation to one, your ego and your confidence. And I also lend myself as a consultant or an advisor versus trying to tell you something that you don't know.
And I think that, well, I actually love the way you did that because you're leading with confidence as well. I mean, you're saying, let's just get this thing done. Let's go through the process. But I think that when you're constantly investing in yourself, what you're saying now is that the game matters. Like I don't have as many shots at this as I normally would. As the sales cycle shortens, people are doing their research. They're coming into a conversation with you. You got one or two shots at getting the thing closed. And I'm not talking about enterprise level deals where you may have, 50 people on a buying committee and you're trying to work through a number of issues and it's super complex. But I'm talking about most of the day's business that we're doing. We don't have to take a lot of time to think about something that we've already taken a lot of time to think about. I just need to make sure I'm making the right decision. And if I trusted myself to make the decision, I would have already made it. That's why I'm having a conversation with you.
Right.
So as a salesperson, it is making sure that when the whistle blows and the game starts, like you are ready to go. Even that statement you made, I just want to make it easy for you to say yes. That awareness of being able to play to my ego and then set it up so that you're already telling me in advance, we're closing today. That's what's going to happen on this call. I think that matters. But so many salespeople, and I experience this often, are just getting complacent with those skills. And I don't think that they recognize that how much the game is on the line in every conversation these days because people are coming in and they've done so much of the work internally, like just getting them to the point where they've essentially decided to solve the problem. Now they just need to figure out which mechanism they're going to use to solve the problem. And they just really need to have someone help them get over that little fear hump. If you're complacent going into those calls, they're going to walk away and go, maybe not that one. Let me go find someplace else. And I think that's crucial. So why do you see salespeople getting complacent? And what are some things that salespeople need to do to essentially rev them up to stay motivated and hungry on every single interaction with a customer to advance the sale and get to closed?
Yeah, I think the complacency question is the hardest one to answer. And, believe me, as you do, I spend a lot of time trying to think about how to, I don't mean this in a negative way, but like how to squeeze more out of the team, how to motivate them to put in an extra hour, make a few extra dials, because I know that there's going to be a return on that. There is more optionality than ever. Information is more accessible than ever. So if you're not going to win the deal, there is definitely someone else that will. And again, it comes down to a nose. So the complacency one is really, really hard. What I would say is, you've got to figure out what motivates the individual and speak to that as a manager. This is where a strong frontline management team is just absolutely game changing. But I would just go back. I hate to, beat the dead horse here, but I would go back to the little things and finding ways to celebrate the process. So, prepping for the call, you get on the call goes great, but the budget got yanked. You lost the deal. So you're not getting a commission check. You're ringing the bell, but can you find a way to celebrate how well you prepared for that? Can you find a way to celebrate that you're going to have an at bat with that prospect later on, but maybe not today? Can you find the silver lining in the dark cloud? That is really, really hard to do when essentially our success is so binary of closed won or closed lost. But I just think back to, as an individual seller, and I may have told you the story before, but I would come home, I would be pumped. I would tell my wife I had a great day, and she'd be like, "Great, how big is the commission check?" And I'd say, "I didn't get paid, but I got a meeting." And I think you have to celebrate and really focus on the steps in the journey, because it is a step in the journey. But the good news is, as you pointed out, the journey is much shorter than it once was. So I think gearing yourself up for these little blasts of effort and preparation, celebrating the fact that you did a good job at that. And then I think the results will follow. Get the planes up in the air and they'll start coming down, but you got to prepare. You got to go through your pre-flight checklist.
So you talked about how frontline leaders, it matters to help, people figure out what their goals are. A term that I like to use is something called the big pull, right? What is the thing that you wake up every day and think about that drives you to be your very best on every call? Or as the great athletes would say, they never take a play off. Like they're going to run it out on every time, whether they're going to get, they're going to get thrown out on first, or they're going to make a double. They're going to run to first base from home as fast as they can every single time, exactly the same way. They're never going to take a play off. And sometimes you have salespeople who are internally driven at a point where they don't really need help with this. But most normal people, they have a hard time sort of figuring those things out. So how important it is for leaders in this environment where I do believe that we're in a stakes are higher in conversations environment than we've ever been before. And there's just so many shifts that are happening. COVID's kind of turned everything upside down, but we are in that moment. What can leaders do to work with their sales reps and their salespeople to help them identify those big pulls or identify those goals that are beyond just here's a paycheck or here's financial? I don't know about you, but that money just was never the driver for me. I always made lots of money, but for me, it was something else that drove me. But I was pretty good at articulating to my bosses what that was. But I find that most salespeople, they don't really have that ability to articulate what it is they want. And sometimes they haven't even thought about it. Like they're just kind of drifting into their job and no one's really helped them pinpoint. Like that's why you're getting up every morning. And that's why you need to invest in all these other things so that you're your very best so you can achieve those goals or those aspirations that you've set for yourself.
Yeah, man, such a really important topic. And I think I would argue that a lot of the deficiency in our sales approach or sales process externally transposes directly in terms of how we sell ideas or get buy-in internally. So oftentimes we're not eating our own dog food in terms of how we would sell to an external prospect versus how you would sell a comp plan to an account executive or something. I do think this is a great example of why the human to human connection is so incredibly important. I would say that maybe the reason that a lot of folks can't pinpoint what's driving them behind the commission check is maybe they've never been asked, or maybe they've never been given the opportunity to sort of just think through that and verbally process that. So, I would start by encouraging my managers to be a human being first and foremost and get to know Jeb, the sales rep, not Jeb, the cell on the spreadsheet that represents a quota value for you, but get to know the person. Understand what do they do in their free time? Hey, you got a great deal last month where X amount of commission dollars. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to take a trip? You're going to celebrate? You're going to stuff it in savings? Like, how are you going to use it? Because in the same way that everybody buys differently, everybody is motivated differently. But I think the other thing is that you've got to understand that it's what's personally driving that individual to be great every day. And hopefully there is something. Otherwise, that's a good opportunity for you to help to brainstorm with that individual of how they could be great and what it means to be great. But the other thing that I would suggest is that it's so easy to get short-sighted, and I'm trying to think about, I think oftentimes people, and maybe this is a COVID hangover sort of thing, I'm not necessarily sure, but I think more people are waking up these days trying to figure out how to squeeze their workday down from 8 hours to 6 hours versus trying to figure out like, how can I get more out of this day? And I think it's just because like, I want to make the most of my Tuesday versus thinking about, I'm going to bust my butt today to make the most out of July as I can. So I think it's thinking bigger, I think it's having that human to human connection, and frontline leaders have to unlock that. Like, what is the back end driver or motivator for that individual? And this goes back to the Rex framework that you and I touched on a little bit last time, is that at the end of the day, like that shiny new car, that vacation home, that trip, that X amount of dollars in the savings account, if that's their North Star, you're pulling that into every single one-on-one conversation where you're talking about performance.
Yeah, I think that's the secret sauce is we're having a conversation about what it is that they want to accomplish versus here are the numbers that we've assigned to you. And I've always found that those conversations are much more productive because when I sit side by side with you or hop on the one-on-one or we're sitting down for our monthly pipeline review, I'm asking you, hey, how are you doing towards that car? Like, what have you saved? What have you put away? Or what are you doing toward getting that home that you want? I'm talking about those things that are important to you. And I think that for leaders, it's teaching leaders how to sit down with someone and ask them, what do you want? Why are you doing this? What's important to you? And having the patience to, like, probably not going to get the answer on that particular conversation. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. Because part of what I'm doing is helping the people that work for me fulfill their dreams. I'm helping them get what they want, and they just don't always know. And then sometimes people achieve something that they wanted, and then they don't know what to do next. Like they got it, and now they're trying to figure out where they, and if you're not there to help them, they begin to stagnate and become complacent. So if you're an individual rep, what I would say is one of the ways that you can identify this for yourself is just ask that question. What do I want? What do I want to accomplish? And then the next question will be, when do I want to accomplish it? And then say why. Why do I want to accomplish this? Make sure I understand how does this fit into my world, and then how bad do I want it? Because that's really it. Because if you think about sales and the difficulties and pain that we go through, a lot of when we think about discipline, the discipline to do all these right things, like the discipline to show up ready to close on every call, no matter what the situation is, no matter what happened on the last call, that discipline is sacrificing what it is that you want now in this moment for what you want most. And if I don't know what I want most, I'm not willing to sacrifice a day. So then I get focused on how can I work only 6 hours a day versus how can I accomplish this particular goal? And I've never believed that sales was a 9-to-5 job. I don't think it is. I mean, I think there are some days when it can be a 6-hour day, and there are other days when you're working on Saturday because that's what it takes to close the deal. So I think that's crucial for both individuals and leaders. But I'd go back to, this is a skill that leaders need to internalize and participate in because it gets you closer to your people. When you help people get what they want, they're willing to run through walls for you. And as Zig always said, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want.
Yeah, no, I think it's good, such sage advice. And, I think the old adage where people don't leave companies, they leave managers. I think this is directly relevant to this, where if, I'm a trusted resource, I'm a trusted human being, I have a human to human connection with my team, I would argue they're much likely to go just take, a 5K base bump and go to the shop down the road. They're much more loyal to me, my company, my vision, the team around them. But you got to invest in it. You got to have that conversation. And I think just one more point on the same vein, and then back to the concept of the big pull. I think the mastery of a frontline manager, or any manager for that matter, is taking again that individual goal of I want a new car and finding a way to draw a line to the company vision.
Yes.
That's the most important thing, is that does the CEO or the executive team have a vision in terms of what the company is trying to accomplish? It's not a revenue target, so that can't be a vision. But is there a vision of the company of what we're trying to change, what we're trying to influence, what we're trying to do in the world? And then how does that translate down into the way the revenue organization contributes to that goal? And then I think too, one of the corny things that I do, and my team, that anyone that has been on one of my teams that listens to this will roll their eyes. But I've got a JFK speech that I play at every single revenue kickoff every quarter, where he talks about going to the moon and how it's going to be really hard. But in order to do it, it's going to be, take the best resources across the team. It's going to make us better as a nation. It's going to make us better as a space program. We are going to be a better country because of just trying, even if we fail. I think that is revenue in a nutshell, and specifically startup revenue in a nutshell, is that we all signed up for this knowing that it's going to be really freaking hard. We're going to have to work some Saturdays. We're going to face a crazy amount of challenges. But when we get to the finish line, We're going to be better as a team. We're going to be better as an individual, and we're going to make the world a better place. So I'm not suggesting that it has to be that sort of like sunshine pump kind of mindset, but finding a way to translate the top level goals of the organization into the individual goals of the person, that's where the magic can really happen.
Yeah, I absolutely, very well said. You mentioned Rex earlier. So will you remind us of your Rex framework and and how it helps salespeople and helps sales leaders stay focused on the right things?
Yeah. So Rex, first and foremost, this is a winning by design concept, and again, I would plug winning by design as a great shop with just some really scientific ways to approach a revenue engine. And so they sort of coined the Rex framework, which I've used and sort of internalized into different companies that I've worked at. But it's results, effort, knowledge, and skill. Oftentimes managers focus just on results. Did you hit the number or did you not? And then it's like, what are you doing to get to the number next time? And usually the first place that they go is effort. Turn the dials up, turn the hours up, work harder, do more things, burn yourself out. What I think world-class managers do is spend the majority of their time on the final two, which is knowledge and skill. People are going to have varying degrees of skill sets. Not everybody is a natural born charismatic seller like you are. So some of us have to kind of develop that over time. And so that's going to be things through like encouraging folks to sign up for Sales University. It's going to be things like taking time to shadow calls and provide coaching feedback. It's going to be things like just giving curriculum-based information to your team to learn, adopt, and put into execution. But Rex framework is essentially just a really easy and lazy way to remember the 4 pillars of how you develop a great team. They've got to generate results. In order to get the results, they've got to put the effort in. But to ensure that that effort has a good return attached to it, you've got to develop their knowledge and their skill. And that's going to come from external sources like Sales University. It's also going to come from internal sources like your peers, your team, as well as any training program you may have established.
Very good. I love that. Awesome. So if you want to find out more about you can check you out on LinkedIn, of course. You've got a great profile on LinkedIn, but you can go to denim.com and you can learn all about factoring on denim.com. And if people are interested in joining your sales team, what should they do?
Yeah, always feel free to shoot me a direct message on LinkedIn. I try my best to respond to most, if not all of those. Or you're welcome to drop us a line at denim.com. As you said, our recruiting team pays pretty close attention to that. So happy to have a conversation and would love to get to know anybody that may be interested.
That would be, you're a great leader. And I think you would be a leader that anybody would want to join your sales team. And it looks like it's remote. So there's all kinds of different ways for people to come work for you. So if you're looking for a new sales career, go check out Will Yarbrough and denim.com. And speaking of knowledge and skills, go check out Sales Gravy University. We truly are the world's most powerful sales training engine. There's nothing else like us. We've got 40 plus of the world's top experts creating incredible content that you can take anytime, anywhere on any device, along with live workshops that are being taught by our master trainers every single week that you and your team or individuals can join. You can learn with your peers. You can build the skills, build your knowledge so that you can go out there and crush it in sales. And if you've never taken a course on Sales Gravy University before, use the code FREECOURSE, that's free course, at learn.salesgravy.com. That's learn.salesgravy.com. We'll see you next time on the Sales Gravy Podcast. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to click like and subscribe so you never miss a single video. And if you want more sales training content, go to learn.salesgravy.com.